Modesto Radio Museum presents an interview with radio DJ legend Johnny Hollliday.
Because this is our chance to find out lots of things about you. So let's start with, how did you first get into being a disc jockey?
By accident. When I graduated from high school at North Miami in Florida, my goal was to be a coach, to be a teacher. But my parents had very little money to send me to college. And they said, if you're going to go to college, you got to work and save money. So immediately I delivered parts for a Chevrolet company. I worked in a men's store. I delivered for a window company. I mean, I did like 3 or 4 different jobs. You're not going to save a lot of money when you're making $40 a week. So my grandfather calls me from Unadilla, Georgia. He had the only drugstore in Unadilla, which is 18 miles, for those of you who don't know, 18 miles south of Perry, Georgia. We have a little semi-pro baseball league of all these small little Georgia towns. You can pitch for our Unadilla team, which is pretty good. And I'll give you $40 a week to work in my drugstore. Wow. So I go up there. My father was born in Unadilla. So I go up there, and I'm there for about maybe a month, 6 weeks. And the gentleman from Perry, Georgia, Al Evans was his name, on the radio station, was in my grandfather's drugstore trying to sell him some airtime and some commercials. He says, I want you to meet my grandson. He's a disc jockey. So, excuse me? I was in a contest as a joke by my best buddy who sent my name in, but I wasn't a disc jockey. So the guy says to me, Mr. Evans says, I'm looking for somebody. You want to come talk to me? Yeah, sure. So I go up the next day and I talk to him, and he has me read a couple of little commercial things. And he says, can you start Monday? I can give you $32 a week. So I took an $8 cut from 40 to 32, and I did everything. I mean, it was all over the place. We had a half-hour show called The Stumpus Family, where Mr. Evans would play the piano. His wife would, it was just, you name it, they did it. I had a Lawrence Welk show that I did, 15 minutes of Lawrence Welk music, followed by 15 minutes of Dream a While music, followed by 15 minutes of rock and roll. I mean, it was just everything. So after 4 months, I decided I'm probably the hottest disc jockey in America. I'm going to go back to Miami, which is my home. I'm going to take that city by storm. So I go back to Miami. Nobody's going to talk to me. I've got 4 months experience. My father says, did you go to the R&B station? No, I didn't. This is during segregated times now, 1956. He says, you got nothing to lose. So I go in there, and the receptionist says, what's up, kid? I said, can I talk to the program director? About what? About working for your station? Doing what? A disc jockey? How old are you? So I'm 18. Oh, you may be in luck. He's only 20. I'll call him out here. And the guy's name, you guys may know the name, Arnie Shore. Arnie was program director later on at KGFJ in Los Angeles, WBZ in Boston, WBNY in Buffalo, and is still one of my closest buddies in retirement down in Orlando, Florida. He listens to my tape. He has his father come in, has the partner come in. They come back and they said, are you willing to relocate? I said, yeah, I've only been as far as Perry, Georgia. We just bought a station up in Rochester, New York. We're going to take over in July, and we'll put you on the air here 2 hours a day from 10 to noon to give you more experience. Then we'll go up there in July. You do the morning show, 75 big ones a week. And that's how I got started.
Did the Cleveland station find you, or did you apply over there?
When I was in Rochester, New York, I was there in Rochester for a year and a half. And I got a call from WKBW in Buffalo.
Mhm.
They're going to change formats on the 4th of July. So my wife and I drive over and talk to a guy named Clint Churchill, who owned the station. He said, you can do either 6 to 9 a.m. or 3 to 6 in the afternoon. We're going to have all new disc jockeys. We're going to call this Future Sonic Sound. It's 50,000 watts covering 7 states at night.
Mhm.
So my wife and I, we listen. We thank them very much for having us come over. We drive back to Rochester. We said, I don't have any desire to leave. I like the people I'm working for. They had come up from Miami. Arnie Shore was my roommate. His dad ran the station. It was a mom and pop operation. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I wasn't in it for the money. I was in it because I really enjoyed what I was doing. So I turned down the job at KBW. On the 4th of July, I tuned in the station. And the first thing I said to myself is, what have I done? This is the most exciting thing I've ever heard. Now, that's July of 1958. I get a call from WHK, a guy named Harvey Glasscock, who's the general manager. And he said, we'd like to talk to you about coming to our station. We're going to change formats. We have no listeners now at all. We're going to go top 40 in February of 1959. And you'd be perfect for the morning show or the afternoon show. And so my wife and I said, Buffalo's a good market. Cleveland's a really good market. So we took that job. They were lucky enough to give us, we had a format that we had to stick to, but we could express ourselves within that format. So there was no restriction on me talking about this or talking about that or giving shout outs to this high school or this high, none of that stuff. It was top 40 with personality, heavy personality. And when we took over, they had no audience. 6 months later, WHK was number one. We had a 50,000 watt station. We were against KYW. It had been there for a long time. And they were like middle of the road top 40, not all the way.
Sure.
But we were a top 40 station, but we had good promotions. We had wonderful jingles made by Sandy Green at that time. And we had wonderful, wonderful leadership from Harvey Glasscock to the program director and all the guys in the station. I was the youngest guy. I wasn't quite 21 yet. And the oldest guy was Pete Myers, who went on to New York City to do a show called Mad Daddy. And he did Mad Daddy in Cleveland and was absolutely brilliant. He was maybe in his early 30s. And they only kept 2 guys. And the rest of us were all new.
There was some air check that you did that wound up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Is that right?
The way I got in there was when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame first opened. They have a display where you can go in this gigantic room and there's a map of the United States. And you can stand in front of this map, and in front of the map are all the various big cities. You hit a button. If you hit a button for Cleveland, up will come a picture of me and an air check of me from WHK when I was in Cleveland. So you can listen to me in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. A guy from St. Louis might have been Jack Carney. It might have been Dan Sorkin from San Francisco. It could have been Cousin Brucey in New York. So you could push any button and that guy would come up in a bio and an air check of that guy. And that's how I got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, that's an amazing honor. You wind up from there at WINS, New York City. Did they come and get you? Did they tempt you to come, and you did?
Yeah. In those days, if you guys remember, if you had a station that you were up against in a market and had dominant personalities, you tried to hire that guy for your company at another station. So we were up against KYW, Westinghouse.
Yeah.
So New York was WNEW, Metro Media. So Metro Media hires Big Wilson on KYW to go to New York, and 1010 Wins, which was Westinghouse, hires me from Metro Media to go to Westinghouse. Our music director was the music director at 1010 Wins. He'd been up there for about a year. Pete Myers was there. I had worked with him at WHK, and they were going to change, not exactly change formats, but kind of upgrade things a little bit. And they kept some of the old timers there, and then they added all these new guys, and it was fun. It was heavy personality and 50,000 watts. And I was 25 years old when I went to New York. I did 10 to 1 for about 2 months.
Hmm.
And then they switched me to the afternoon 2 to 6 when they brought in Joel Sebastian from
Yeah.
Chicago to be the 10 to 1 guy. Then
Hmm.
I moved to the afternoon.
Okay. Now you got to work with Murray the K,
Yeah.
which is just a legendary name to most of us. You got any memories about him?
Murray was, I guess, a father figure to me.
Oh,
When I got there, my first day in the air, Joel Chaseman, God rest his soul, was the general manager and the program director. He'd been PD, then he went to general manager. And he said to me, Murray is in Miami Beach with the Beatles. Can you do his show tonight, 7 to 10? They will call in, and you pop John, George, Paul, and Ringo on the air with Murray. And I did that for 3 nights. And to show you how dominant Murray was, and he was probably 15 years older than I was,
hmm.
I said to the engineer, we're going to start off with Martha and the Vandellas and Nowhere to Go, Nowhere to. And the engineer says, well, Murray always starts off with a Sinatra song. I said, yeah, but see, Murray's not here. He's down at Miami Beach. So I'm going to start off with Martha and the Vandellas. And he leans over in the talkback. He says, did you hear what I said? Murray always starts off with a Sinatra song, and you will too. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I said, you pick it out, no problem. And then the guys called in from Miami Beach. And we had the Beatles on the air. And I did that for 3 nights, my show and his show. When he comes back, he comes in the studio. He's very Natalie attired, a little Russian fur hat, got a nice coat on. He says, I want to thank you for doing my show for 3 nights. And stick with me. I'm going to show you the ropes of New York. And stick with me. You're going to be okay. I'm going to watch after you. And boy, he meant it. Because
Wow.
he just owned New York City. Owned
Hmm.
it.
Well, I recall that he called himself the fifth Beatle.
Yeah.
There were others who did that, but if you do that in New York, it kind of sticks.
Yeah. He was. I mean, he was with those guys all the time.
Hmm.
And interesting, one thing about Murray was a great showman. He was also a great athlete. He played minor league baseball, which people didn't know.
Man.
And he had shows at the Brooklyn Fox Theater, an Easter show, a Christmas show, and a Thanksgiving show. 7 shows a day for 2 weeks, all live. He'd have Dionne Warwick, he'd have Benny King, he'd have Smokey Robinson. I mean, all these people that he brought in, and he made tons of money. And he had each one of us come out to the show to introduce 1 or 2 acts. And he paid us for doing that. Pretty nice.
What a great gig that was.
Oh, yeah. He didn't pay us a lot, but we got, a little bit.
He didn't lose money on that thing.
That's right.
So your tenure at WINS was how long?
Wasn't very long at all. About a year and 2 months.
Mhm.
They switched to all news in April of 1965. They renewed my contract in February for another year, and then they decided to go all news in April of 65.
Mm.
And I remember I was home with a flu, and Chaseman calls me and says, how you feeling? I said, I'm feeling pretty good. I'll be back to work on Monday. He said, well, I just hate to tell you this while you're home sick, but against my best wishes, they're going to make this an all news station. I said, what? He said, yeah, I know. I fought and I fought, but corporate just has too much to say about it. But I'm going to get you every dollar you have coming in your contract, which was 10 months. I'm going to get Joel Chaseman the same thing, Ed Hyder the same thing. He got every one of us, every dime we had coming. Now, the Westinghouse contract, you couldn't work within 100 miles of New York. So they wanted me to go back to Cleveland to go against my old station, and I refused to do that. Then I went to Boston. I didn't like WBZ. I went to Pittsburgh. No way. I went to Fort Wayne. No way. Chicago. No way.
Wow.
And so I get a call. I had 2 calls, one from Gary Smith, who produced Hullabaloo, and I was the announcer for Hullabaloo on NBC. And he said, "Who made this tremendous decision to make your station all news? What a stupid move that is." I said, "I didn't make the move, Gary." He said, "Well, you're the announcer for my show." I said, "Yeah, I was going to call you and say I can't do it anymore." "Oh, yeah, you can. We'll fly you back from San Francisco once a week."
Jeez.
So that's what I did, 37 weeks, back to New York and San Francisco back in the same day. The second call I got was from Clint Churchill, who owned WKBW. He said, "I think I got you now." That's what are you talking about? He said, "Well, you turned me down in 1957. Now here it is, 1965. I own KYA, San Francisco. Come to work. I'm flying back to New York and talking to you." So that's how.
Well, getting back to Hullabaloo,
Yeah.
how did that job come about for you?
I got a call one day, and the guy says, "My name is Gary Smith. How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." He said, "I produce Hullabaloo on NBC. And we got this announcer that I'm not crazy about. We've done one show, and I listen to you every afternoon going home, and I think you would be perfect for our show. Can we have lunch together?" I said, "Yeah." "When is the show on?" I wasn't even aware of it. And he said, "We're on Monday nights on NBC." "Yeah, sure." So that's how I got that job. I warmed up the audience beforehand. We did 2 shows, and they took the best of each one and put it together to send out on the network on Monday nights. And then I would go back to Kennedy Airport, and this is while I was in San Francisco, and then fly back and be back in San Francisco at 2 o'clock in the morning and be on the air at 6 o'clock. But while I was in New York, we did it at NBC Rockefeller or NBC Brooklyn, either one of those 2 studios. And I could talk about it on 1010 Wins. Here's who we got coming up this week on Hullabaloo on NBC. And you could do any of that stuff. You could promote it, and the station loved it. They just loved it.
Tonight from Hollywood on Hullabaloo, the Birds, Chad and Jill, Jackie DeShannon, Paul Revere and the Raiders, David Winters. Brought to you by Disco Tents, Max Factor's shimmering new lip colors for the new generation, and Arid deodorant to be sure. And by Clearasil to fight today's surface blemishes and the excess oil that might cause tomorrow's blemishes. And here is your host for this week's Hullabaloo, Little Joe of Bonanza, Michael Landon.
And when you look at the schedule, people say, "What, were you nuts?" I said, "No, I was young." When you're young, stuff like that doesn't bother you. It's kind of like exciting, that you're flying coast to coast. You're doing a network show. You're rubbing elbows with all these big performers on the show, and it's no big deal. Now that I think back at it, I had to be killing my body, but I never knew that.
Johnny, that's interesting, because when Rick told us all that you're doing now, at your age, we said, "What, is he nuts?"
Maybe you guys feel exactly the same way, but I never felt it was work at all. I mean, I couldn't wait to get to work at any station I worked at. I just couldn't wait to get in there and do things that I knew that I could do well. And then when I left KYA and came to Washington, same company that owned KYA, but this was a middle of the road station here, and with a lot more personality, a lot more creativity. And I was able to do a lot more than I did in San Francisco.
While you're at KYA, you get to be part of the Beatles' last concert. What, did you know it was going to be their last concert?
We had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea at all. They were as nice, as accessible as any group you could ever be associated with. And I think having known them from New York kind of helped me a little bit.
Yeah.
And when they walked in, we're in the Giants clubhouse, having sandwiches and snacks and cookies and drinks before they went on. And they said to me, Johnny Hollliday, oh, you're a friend of Murray's, right? That's the way they attached me to Murray. I said, yeah, what are you doing out here? I said, the station's all news. And I took the job out here. So that kind of opened up the door a little bit, but they were nice to everybody.
Right.
And nobody had any thoughts at all about this being their last concert together as the Beatles. Cloudy night, kind of a foggy night. Tickets were $650. That was the top ticket, $650. And it wasn't sold out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite interesting. I never thought to get a picture.
I was there. I was there.
Any of those guys.
I was there with you.
Were you there?
I was on the third base line.
No kidding.
I hope you could hear better than we could.
Yeah, because the sound was going out to center field.
So while you're at KYA, you get this great honor of being named the national #1 disc jockey in America.
Promotion men voted on that. And if you got a lot of friends that are promotion men, you can win anything. And I don't think it was because of Bill. What was his name that had the
Gavin?
Bill Gavin, yeah. Bill Gavin. His daughter used to babysit for my kids when they were little. We had great promotion men when I was in San Francisco, and these guys vote. And I think it was a popularity contest. There were guys certainly better than I was, and bigger names than I was. But it was quite an honor.
I heard you as the PA announcer for the Oakland Raiders, and then for the Warriors. Was that the exact same time, like you were doing basketball?
Yeah, same time, yeah. I did the Cleveland Browns, too, when I was in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
I called up, the public address announcer had passed away in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
And I called, and I got right through to Art Modell, which I was shocked. I said, Mr. Modell, my name is Johnny Hollliday. Hello, Johnny, how are you? I said, well, I'm fine. He said, I listened to you when I'm going, oh, that's nice. I said, I was sorry to hear about your PA guy. Could I throw my hat in the ring in case you're looking for somebody? Absolutely. He said, we have this doubleheader coming up in August, and you do the first game. We'll have his spotter, who was also interested in doing the PA work, do the second game. So I said, okay. We did the announcing from the field. Wherever the ball was, that's where I was in the sidelines. So after the first game, he calls down. He says, let me talk to Jerry. And Jerry hands the phone back to me. And Mr. Modell says, you can do the second game too. Can Jerry be your spotter? And I said, oh, absolutely he can. Sure. And this guy, Jerry, was so nervous. He said, I could have never done the PA announcing. He had offered it to me, but I could never do it. I would be just too nervous. I'd rather be your spotter. So that's how I got that job. And so when I went to San Francisco, I just happened to call the Raiders and said, do you need a guy? And they said, well, yeah, we do. I said, well, I did the Browns. Oh, really? Boom, I got that job.
Got that job.
So when Rick Barry came to town with the Warriors, and Rick and I being from Miami, that was my connection. They said, we're going to make a PA change. You want to do it? Yeah, sure. So that's how I got that job.
Are you and Rick Barry still friends?
Yeah, I talk to Rick all the time. He lives down in Clearwater, Florida. He and his wife, they've been married. This is his third wife. They've been married for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, I guess. Yeah, Rick comes back. He played my charity golf tournament 3 straight years up until a couple of years ago. Yeah.
As I'm thinking about you getting into WWDC, which is more middle of the road, you can do more talking, do more bits, entertaining. Did you have a team around you to help provide all that material?
Yeah, the other staff members that were doing the morning show, the news people, the sports people, the engineers. I used all of it.
Yeah.
And it was, when I talked about I couldn't wait to go to work the next day, I'd wake up in the morning at 1:30 or 2 o'clock with an idea for a song parody. And I'd go in the family room and take a record out and put the album on, an instrumental, and say, I could write the lyrics to this particular melody. My wife would come in and she says, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? I said, shh, I'd have this idea for a song. and I'm just listening to this melody here. So I write these songs, the intros for the traffic reporter. I'd have kids singing different songs, and I have an idea for a bit that I wanted to do, and it was some of the best times of my life was doing that show at WWDC.
You certainly always had sports in your blood, and more you're doing sports in Washington, D.C., and you kind of went away from the radio stuff to be doing all this sports. What was the first of the sports that you did at Washington?
The Senators. We had the Washington Senators. The last 2 years they were here. So I did the pregame show with Ted Williams before every game. We do an opposing player and we do a Senators player. To work with Ted Williams was, I mean, talk about a thrill. He was like bigger than life. Mm-hmm. He was almost like a John Wayne character. I had my charity basketball team. I had my charity softball team. And a funny story about Ted Williams was we had a doubleheader one night in softball. And I'm at the end of the dugout, and he walks out before we tape his pregame show, and he says, "Hey, Hollliday, how'd you do in that doubleheader last night? 9 for 14, something like that." So Ted Williams says, "In slow pitch, grab a bat." I said, "What? Let me see your stance." So I grab a bat, and here's Ted Williams. Give me the bat. I want you to get that. He's showing me how he hit. Now he's hitting left-handed, of course. I want you to crouch down, get that thing, get that shoulder back, giving me tips of how. If I could have had a picture of that.
Yes, man.
And the guys from the Senators, they were laughing their heads off. They said, "Hey, Ted, he went 9 for 14. What's better than that?" Ted Williams says, 14 for 14 is better than that. The interview I did with Joe DiMaggio and Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, those guys.
Yeah.
And when Mickey Mantle came to town, he was a first base coach for the Yankees. And we got a memo saying no interviews with Mickey Mantle. He doesn't want to be bothered with interviews. He's off limits. So my friend happened to be the shortstop for the Yankees, Gene Michael, who later became the manager of the Yankees. Mm-hmm. And we had played on a basketball team together in Cleveland, an industrial league team together when he got out of Kent State. So we were friends. So I do the interview with Gene Michael for the pregame show. And he says, "You're going to talk to Mantle, aren't you?" I said, "I can't." He said, "What do you mean you can't?" So I show him this memo. He says, "Wait right here." So he brings Mantle out. Gene says, "Hey, Mick, this is a buddy of mine, Johnny Hollliday. He does the pregame for the Senators. Good guy to talk to." "Hey, Johnny, how you doing? Mickey Mantle." I say, "Hey, Mick, how you doing?" "Well, let me first of all question who your friends are. If you're hanging around with this guy, I got to question your taste in friends." He's busted on Gene Michael. So the other guys from the media are walking by saying, how's Johnny Hollliday talking to Mickey Mantle?
Yeah. Man.
Let me tell you one quick Joe DiMaggio story.
Sure.
We had the Old Timers Baseball Classic in Washington when we didn't have baseball for all those years. So DiMaggio would come in, Willie Mays would come in. They'd have 25, 30,000 people to watch this game. And ABC Radio would carry it nationwide. I did the pregame, all the on-field interviews and the postgame. And they bring in Red Barber. They bring in Mel Allen. They bring in Jack Brickhouse, all these major announcers to do the game. Mm-hmm. So my boss says to me, "You're going to open up the broadcast with Willie Mays, that I knew from San Francisco and the Giants, and Joe DiMaggio." So I said, "How am I going to get Joe DiMaggio?" "The producer will go down and get him." So DiMaggio sends word back, "I'll talk to you, but I'm not coming out of the dugout. And I will talk to you when I get through visiting with my friends from the media here in Washington." So we've already done Willie Mays. Now we have 8 minutes allotted for DiMaggio. So he gets through. He's got his Yankee uniform on, number 5, sitting there in the dugout. He motions me to come down. I want to say, "Hello, Mr. DiMaggio. I'm so enamored by this guy." He says, "Hi, John, Joe DiMaggio." I said, "Joe, Johnny Hollliday. How long is this going to take?" that's not a good sign when they ask something like that. I said, it's not going to be long. Let's go. So I'm thinking, when's the last time you talked to Sal Bando? So Joe DiMaggio says, do you know Sal? I said, well, Sal's one of my closest buddies. I used to pitch batting practice to him when he was in high school in Cleveland. And then when he was with the Oakland A's in San Francisco, to Oakland, and you were a coach on the A's, Sal played in my charity basketball team. I also had him do sports on our station in the morning. So DiMaggio says, Johnny, that's right, Johnny, you're from San Francisco. Yes, sir. Of course, how are you? Now we do 13 minutes with DiMaggio. And every year we would come back, John, how are you? Hey, Joe, how you doing? But
I love that.
I don't have that hook of Sal Bando being a friend of mine. It'd have been a very difficult interview.
We read where you've done a bunch of Olympics. Which were the events that you covered there?
Sarajevo was my first. Covered the downhill, covered the slalom, covered women's figure skating. In Seoul, baseball.
Uh-huh.
The coach of the U.S. Olympic baseball team is a guy named Skip Bertman that I played against in high school. And I made a point of bringing the box score of North Miami and Miami Beach to the Olympics with me when I did an interview with him. So I meet Skip Bertman, former coach at LSU. I said, I played against you in high school. He says, really? Where? I said, I went to North Miami. You went to Miami? Yeah, I went to Miami Beach. I said, you can never hit me. Said, did you pitch against me? I said, yeah. Where? I said, North Miami. He said, North Miami. He said, I remember a left-handed guy and a big blonde kid with a great curveball and a little guy with glasses. I said, it's me, the little guy with the glasses. So I bring out this box score. He went 0 for 4. He says, you know why I never hit you? Because we were concerned at what time would you hit us? Because you had no control. I said, yeah, no control at all. When I did boxing with Ken Norton, the former heavyweight champion, all the other sports we would do different. I mean, we would do different things. Whatever the assignment was that day, we would go out and cover it. It was exciting. I did Sarajevo, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Calgary, Seoul, Albertville, France, Sydney, Australia, LA. ABC had the rights to the Olympics, so we did a lot of live broadcasting. But everything we did was live on ABC radio. So, I mean, each day we knew what we were going to do. You're sending a kid from Miami, Florida, to do women's fit. I never skated much in Miami growing up as a kid, But I worked with, you may know this name, Carol Heist Jenkins, gold medalist for the United States at Squaw Valley, I think in 1958 or 1960. Or something like that. Yeah. And I covered a lot of stuff that I'd never covered before, never done it before. All you guys are here. We had Fred Manfra, myself, we had Bill White, former manager of the New York Yankees. A lot of national broadcasters were with us for ABC. And he said, all you guys, you may get assignments that you may not be happy with or like, but you're here because you can do everything. So we did everything, and we did it pretty good, too.
You also did some golf, like you covered the Masters.
I was amazed at how these guys could come back after playing their round at the Masters and sit there with the media and go over every single shot that they had taken that day. And that just blew me away.
Right.
And doing interviews with the guys when they came in, walking the course with them. And then we got a chance to play on Monday when the Masters is over the next day. The media could play. And I'm sitting out there at Amen Corner saying, whoa, this is an easy shot down there. Yeah, right. Not quite. But that was the thrill of a lifetime, the Masters.
Oh, no kidding.
I think I did it for like 20 straight years.
So when did you become the voice of the University of Maryland?
1979, my first year. And the guy that had been doing the games, named Tim Brandt, had gone into television, and I was at WMAL at the time. And my boss says to me, "You've done football." And I said, "Yeah, the last game I did before I came to Washington was the Stanford Cal game." on Channel 44 in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That was the last football game that I had done. And he said, well, how'd you like to take over the Maryland broadcast? Yeah, sure. Okay. That's when I took over in 1979. And here it is 45 years later. And I'm still trying to get it right.
Well, that's not true. You do such an amazing job. Which do you like better, football or basketball as a broadcaster?
You know, I don't think there's a difference. I like whichever one I'm doing, basically, is the one I like the most. I think basketball is, to me, easier because you only have 14 guys in the team and only 8 guys play, maybe 9 guys play.
Sure.
And it's 2 hours compared to football where you got 98 guys and it could be 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more preparation for football than there is for basketball.
Is all that prep work still easy for you?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think there's been anything that I've been lucky enough to do that has been so overwhelming that it's really bothered me that I can't grasp it or I can't get this right or I've never met that at all. I've been able to handle most everything that's been thrown at me. The schools give you so much information.
Right.
They give you like 50 sheets of breakdowns of each guy. And I pick out what I want to talk about this guy and that guy. And you can't use everything because the plays are happening like that. So you have to be quick. You have to get in and get out. And it's
sure.
Sometimes it's a challenge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the play is over and you've got like 30 seconds to something to get ready for the next play.
And basketball is really quick.
How much longer do you want to do this?
I take it right now each year, 1 year at a time.
Uh-huh.
I thought maybe I would do this for maybe 10 years, but it just keeps on going. We won a national championship. There's the ring right there.
Yeah. Always wear that. Always wear that. Yep.
That's 2002 in basketball. I've got a World Series ring from the Nationals, having done that for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my family would probably like to have me give it up right now. My wife would like to have me give up basketball and baseball. And she says to me over and over again, why are you doing this? I said, because strange as it may seem, I like it.
Yeah.
And it's not work. It's not, you're dealing with young people. You're dealing with good young people. You're calling a game. You got the best seat in the house. This is not work for me, but everybody else, they consider it. How do you do all? Well, it's not work. It's something I enjoy. I always have, and I'll know when it's time to quit. I mean, if I don't like it at the end of this year, if the end of this football season and basketball season, I'm thinking, man, that's a grind. Boom, I'll walk away.
Well,
luckily for me, Maryland has given me, you stay as long as you want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So you make the call. Been married for 65 years.
So how old were you when you got married? 12.
I was 21, and my wife was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, neither one of us. I didn't go to college. Neither my wife didn't go to college either. She could have, but she chose not to. We've been together, 65 years, been married this past June. I've got 3 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
One is a physician, internal medicine, and her husband, the same thing. The middle one is a NICU nurse, neonatal.
Yeah.
And the baby is a post-surgical nurse.
Wow.
And the baby, who's 42, has 4 girls. The middle daughter has got 4 boys, and the oldest daughter has got 3 boys.
Wow. I must say,
11 great grandkids.
Yeah, you've been blessed among those who are blessed.
It's just, you don't know how lucky I've been.